Officer Diane Miller had been with the Earth Defense Force Security Division for 15 years. She had seen it all, or so she thought. The criminal courts of New Washington Colony were always busy since the establishment of the first human settlement on Proxima Centauri b, but today was different. Today she was escorting what appeared to be just another troublemaker. The man beside her was tall, his dark skin glistening with sweat under the harsh court lights. He called himself John Carter, but Diane was certain it was an alias. His file was suspiciously thin, apprehended near a restricted military zone, no identification, refusing to explain his presence. To Diane, he was just another colonist who didn't know his place. "Move it," she hissed, shoving him forward harder than necessary as they approached the courtroom. "Your kind always makes trouble." John said nothing, his eyes fixed forward, his expression unreadable. The dignity in his silence only irritated Diane more. "Judge Franklin doesn't like waiting," she continued, tightening her grip on his arm. "Though for people like you, I'm sure he'll make an exception. He knows how to handle troublemakers from the Southern District." As they entered the courtroom, Diane noticed several high-ranking military officials seated in the back. Unusual for a simple trespassing case. John noticed them too, his posture straightening almost imperceptibly. "Sit down and shut up," Diane ordered, pushing him toward the defendant's chair. "And don't even think about trying anything." The judge entered, and the court rose. As Judge Franklin took his seat, he glanced at John with an expression Diane couldn't quite read. It almost looked like respect. "Case number 2157B, the clerk announced. "John Carter, charged with trespassing in a military zone and resisting arrest." The judge cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, I'd like to clarify something." He looked directly at John. "Sir, would you please state your full name and rank?" "For the record," Diane snorted. "His name is John Carter, Your Honor, just another trespasser claiming to be lost." John slowly rose to his feet. The courtroom fell silent. Admiral Jonathan Carter, Earth Defense Force Special Operations Command, Authorization Code Alpha 97 Delta Echo 2. The blood drained from Diane's face. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Diane felt her knees weaken as she gripped the edge of the table for support. Admiral Jonathan Carter. The Jonathan Carter, hero of the Battle of Tau Ceti, the man who had negotiated the peace treaty with the Arcturus Coalition, one of the most decorated officers in the entire Earth Defense Force. Judge Franklin immediately stood. "This court recognizes Admiral Carter. All charges are hereby suspended pending investigation." His voice was firm but held a note of concern. "Admiral, may I ask why you were in a restricted zone without identification?" Admiral Carter's eyes flicked briefly to the military officials in the back of the room. "Classified operation, Your Honor. I can provide details to those with appropriate clearance." One of the officials, a stern-looking woman with general stars on her collar, approached the bench and handed the judge a data pad. Judge Franklin's eyes widened as he read. "I see," he said finally. "This court is now in recess. Everyone except essential personnel, please clear the room." As people began filing out, Admiral Carter turned to Diane. His expression wasn't angry. It was something worse. Disappointment. "Officer Miller," he said quietly, "I believe we have some matters to discuss." Diane couldn't meet his eyes. Her career flashed before her eyes, 15 years of service, potentially ruined by her own prejudice. But more than that, the shame of how she had treated a man who had risked his life countless times to protect humanity, to protect her. When the courtroom had emptied except for the military officials, Admiral Carter finally explained. "Operation Shadowstep," he began. "A deep cover mission to identify leaks within our highest security facilities. I've been undercover for 6 months, living in the Southern District, establishing a cover identity." General Patricia Alvarez stepped forward. "Admiral Carter's mission has uncovered a troubling pattern of discrimination and abuse of power within the security forces, particularly directed at residents from certain districts." Diane felt sick. She had been part of that pattern. What happens now? She managed to ask. That, said Admiral Carter, depends on what we do next. The next day, Diane was called to a private meeting with Admiral Carter and General Alvarez. She expected to be fired, maybe even charged with misconduct. Instead, she found herself facing an unexpected offer. We need someone on the inside, Admiral Carter explained. Someone who understands the culture of the security force. Someone who can help us identify others who might be part of this problem. You want me to spy on my fellow officers? Diane asked, shocked. General Alvarez leaned forward. We want you to help us make the Earth Defense Force better, to make it live up to its promise of protecting all humans equally. Diane looked from one to the other. Why me? After what I did, what I said to you? Admiral Carter's expression was serious. Because you made a mistake, Officer Miller, and because I believe you can learn from it. The question is, do you want to? Diane thought about her 15 years of service. She thought about all the times she had treated people from the Southern District differently. She thought about how easily she had believed what others told her about those people. I want to make it right, she said finally. Admiral Carter nodded. It won't be easy. Changing minds never is, especially your own. I understand, sir. Do you? He asked. Because this isn't just about catching bad officers. It's about understanding why good officers sometimes do bad things. Diane swallowed hard. I think I'm beginning to, sir. The plan was set in motion. Diane would return to her normal duties but with a new purpose. She would watch, listen, and learn. She would report directly to Admiral Carter, identifying patterns of discrimination and possible connections to security leaks. As she left the meeting, Admiral Carter caught up with her in the hallway. One more thing, Officer Miller. Yes, sir? Tomorrow, I want you to spend your day off in the Southern District, not in uniform, just walk around, talk to people. Eat at a local restaurant. Sir? His expression was gentle but firm. You can't protect people you don't understand, and you can't understand people you've never really seen. The next day, Diane found herself walking the streets of the Southern District, feeling exposed without her uniform. She noticed things she had never seen before during her patrols. Children playing, families sharing meals, artists creating beautiful murals on previously blank walls. She stopped at a small cafe and ordered lunch. The owner, an older man with kind eyes, served her himself. First time in this part of town, he asked. Is it that obvious? She replied. He smiled. We notice new faces. It's a small community. As she ate, she looked around at the other customers. People laughing, talking, living their lives. Not so different from any other part of the colony. By the time Diane headed home, she had much to think about, and much to learn. 2 weeks later, Diane found herself sitting across from Admiral Carter in a secure briefing room at Earth Defense Force headquarters. After intense debriefing sessions and a thorough review of her service record, she had expected to be discharged. Instead, she had been reassigned to Admiral Carter's Special Task Force. I don't understand, Diane admitted. After how I treated you. Admiral Carter leaned forward. Officer Miller, do you know why I chose to live in the Southern District during my undercover assignment? She shook her head. Because I grew up there, he said simply. Before I joined the EDF, before I became an admiral, I was just another kid from the Southern District that people like you assumed was trouble. Diane felt the shame burning her cheeks. I'm not keeping you on this task force because I've forgiven you, he continued. I'm keeping you on because you need to see the truth, and because you're good at your job when you're not letting prejudice cloud your judgment. A holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing a three-dimensional map of the colony. We've identified a serious threat, Admiral Carter explained. The classified data we've been tracking shows that someone is selling defense algorithms to the Proxima Separatist movement. Our job is to find out who. General Alvarez joined them, adding, what Admiral Carter experienced as John Carter wasn't just about exposing prejudice in our ranks. It was about identifying who might be vulnerable to recruitment by the Separatists The Separatists specifically target individuals who feel marginalized. Carter continued. They exploit the divisions. We create ourselves. The discrimination you showed me, that's exactly what they look for. Diane studied the map, seeing her colony, her home, with new eyes. The artificial divisions between districts, the security checkpoints, the different standards of living, all of it cultivating resentment that could be weaponized. I need your help, Officer Miller, Admiral Carter said, but I need you to see everyone in this colony as equally worthy of protection. Can you do that? Diane met his gaze for the first time since the courtroom. Yes, sir. I can learn to do that. Good, he nodded. Because we start tomorrow, Next morning, Diane reported to a small unmarked facility on the edge of the military district. Inside, she found a team of 5 other officers, all from different backgrounds. Some she recognized, others were new faces. Meet your new team, Admiral Carter said, introducing them one by one. Officer Sam Rodriguez, communications expert. Officer Lee Wei, tech specialist. Officer Aisha Johnson, behavioral analysis. Officer Nikolai Petrov, tactical operations. And Officer Ben Hayes, community liaison. Diane nodded to each of them, noticing their reserved expressions. They knew who she was and what she had done. You all know why you're here, Admiral Carter continued. The Proxima Separatist movement is gaining strength. They're exploiting divisions within our colony to recruit members and gather intelligence. Your job is to identify their operatives and shut down their network. He pulled up a series of profiles on the display. We have reason to believe that several high-ranking officials within the Earth Defense Force may be sympathetic to the Separatist cause, he explained. Some for ideological reasons, others because they've been compromised or coerced. Officer Johnson raised a hand. Sir, are we talking about a few bad apples or a systemic problem? Admiral Carter's expression was grim. That's what we need to find out. For the next several hours, they reviewed data, intelligence reports, and suspicious activity patterns. By midday, they had identified 3 potential leads, all security officers who had shown unusual behavior in recent months. Officer Miller, Admiral Carter said as the meeting wrapped up. I want you to take point on this first suspect, Captain Frank Doyle. Diane felt the blood drain from her face. My commanding officer? Carter nodded. That's why it has to be you. You have access and he trusts you. With all due respect, sir, Officer Hayes interjected. Can we trust her, given her history? The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Diane. A fair question, Admiral Carter acknowledged. Officer Miller, how would you respond? Diane took a deep breath. I made mistakes, serious ones. I believed things about people based on where they lived or what they looked like. I enforced policies that hurt innocent people. She paused, looking each team member in the eye. I can't undo that, but I can do better now. Admiral Carter watched her carefully. And Captain Doyle? He was your mentor, wasn't he? Yes, sir. He taught me a lot. Diane hesitated, then added, including some of the attitudes I'm now ashamed of. Officer Petrov leaned forward. You're saying he encouraged prejudice? Not directly, Diane explained. It was more subtle. Comments about those people from the Southern District. Policies that focused security resources on certain areas. Statistics used to justify harsher treatment. The kind of attitudes that create division, Admiral Carter noted. Exactly what the Separatists need to exploit. The team spent the rest of the day planning their approach. Captain Doyle would be difficult to investigate. He was experienced, cautious, and well-connected. They would need to be careful. As they prepared to leave, Admiral Carter pulled Diane aside. Are you ready for this? It won't be easy investigating your former mentor. Diane nodded slowly. I need to know the truth, sir. For my own sake, as much as the mission. Good, he said. Remember, trust is earned, not given. This team will be watching you closely. I understand, sir. The next day, Diane returned to her regular duties at the security headquarters. Everything looked the same. But she saw it all differently now. The way certain officers spoke about the Southern District residents, the unequal distribution of patrols, the harsher treatment of some suspects compared to others. Captain Doyle greeted her with a smile. "Miller, heard you had some excitement in court last week. Some undercover big shot, wasn't it?" "Yes, sir," she replied carefully. "Admiral Carter." Doyle's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Admiral's playing dress-up in the Southern District. What a waste of resources. He was investigating security leaks, sir." "Was he now?" Doyle's voice was casual, but Diane noticed a slight tension in his shoulders. "Find anything interesting, did he?" "I wouldn't know, sir. Above my pay grade." Doyle studied her for a moment. "Well, you're back where you belong now. I've got a special assignment for you. Southern District Patrol. Some troublemakers we need to keep an eye on." "Yes, sir," Diane replied, accepting the data pad he handed her. As she reviewed the assignment, her heart sank. The troublemakers were residents who had done nothing wrong. Community leaders, business owners, even a teacher at the local school. People who were speaking up about the unfair treatment of their district. People who, just weeks ago, she would have watched without question. Now she had to decide, follow orders or follow her conscience. Diane patrolled the Southern District with new eyes. The streets she once viewed with suspicion now revealed their true character. People working hard, families caring for each other, communities supporting one another despite limited resources. She recognized faces from the list Captain Doyle had given her. Normal people labeled as troublemakers simply because they spoke up for their community. While walking her beat, she visited the small cafe where she had eaten during her day off. The owner, Alan Brown, greeted her with caution. "Officer Miller, didn't expect to see you in uniform here." "Just doing my rounds, Mr. Brown," she replied, trying to sound casual. "How's business?" "As good as it can be with security checks slowing down my deliveries," he said, watching her closely. Diane nodded, understanding the hidden message. The security checks were targeted at Southern District businesses, making it harder for them to compete with shops in other areas. "That sounds frustrating," she said. "Mind if I ask who else has been experiencing these delays?" Brown hesitated, then mentioned several other business owners, all names from Doyle's troublemaker list. "Thank you for the information," she said. "I'll look into it." That evening, Diane met with Admiral Carter's team in their secure facility. She reported what she had learned. "The security checks on deliveries don't follow standard protocol," she explained. "They're specifically targeting businesses owned by community leaders." Officer Hayes nodded. "Creating economic pressure to silence vocal residents. Classic intimidation tactic." "But is it connected to the separatists?" Officer Rodriguez asked. "Or just garden variety discrimination?" Admiral Carter, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Let's find out. Officer Miller, I want you to access the security check records. See who authorized these non-standard procedures." "That would be Captain Doyle, sir," Diane replied. "He personally reviews all Southern District protocols." "Get me proof," Carter ordered, "and find out who else is involved." The next day, Diane returned to headquarters early, before most staff arrived. Using her security clearance, she accessed the record system. What she found disturbed her deeply. The targeted security checks had begun 6 months ago, around the same time Admiral Carter started his undercover mission. And they weren't just slowing down deliveries. They were also gathering information about shipments, inventories, and customer lists. Even more concerning, Diane discovered a hidden communication channel in the security network. Messages were being sent to an unknown location, encrypted with a military-grade cipher. She downloaded the evidence to a secure data chip and hurried to meet the team. "You were right," she told Admiral Carter, presenting her findings. "The security checks are collecting data, and someone's sending it off-world." Officer Lee analyzed the encryption. "This is a military cipher, but with modifications. Someone with high-level clearance created this." "Captain Doyle has that clearance," Diane confirmed, "and he's been meeting regularly with 2 other high-ranking officers from different divisions." Admiral Carter studied the evidence. We need to know what's in those encrypted messages, and we need to identify everyone involved before we move. Officer Petrov suggested a plan. We plant monitoring devices in Doyle's office, capture his communications directly. Too risky, Admiral Carter replied. If he detects our surveillance, the whole network might go dark. What about a direct approach? Officer Johnson suggested. Officer Miller could express interest in Doyle's views, get him to reveal more. All eyes turned to Diane. It could work, she said slowly. Doyle has been mentoring me for years. He's shared some of his more extreme views before. I could show interest, ask questions. Admiral Carter looked concerned. It's dangerous. If he suspects you're investigating him, I know, Diane acknowledged. But I helped create this problem by following his lead without question. Now I need to help fix it. After much discussion, they agreed on the plan. Diane would try to get closer to Doyle, gain his confidence, and learn more about the separatist connection. The next day, she knocked on Captain Doyle's office door. Miller, come in, he greeted her. How's the Southern District Patrol going? That's what I wanted to talk about, sir, she said, closing the door behind her. I've been watching those troublemakers you mentioned. Doyle leaned forward, interested. And? I think I understand what you've been saying all these years, she continued carefully, about how some people just don't fit into our society. How they undermine what we're trying to build here. A smile spread across Doyle's face. I always knew you were smart, Miller. Took you a while, but you see it now, don't you? The threat from within. Diane nodded, hiding her disgust. The thing is, sir, I'm wondering if we're doing enough. The security checks slow them down, but they're still operating, still spreading their ideas. Patience, Miller, Doyle replied, his voice lower now. We have plans in motion, bigger than just harassment. What kind of plans, sir? She asked, trying to sound eager rather than alarmed. Doyle studied her for a long moment. You had a run-in with Admiral Carter recently, didn't you? In court? Diane felt her pulse quicken but kept her expression neutral. Yes, sir. Embarrassing situation. What did you think of him? She chose her words carefully. Arrogant. Thinks he knows what's best for the colony without understanding the real problems we face every day. Doyle nodded, seeming satisfied. The top brass is out of touch. They talk about unity while undermining the natural order. Some of us understand what needs to be done. And what's that, sir? He smiled. Not here, Miller. But if you're truly interested, there's a meeting tonight. People who share our concerns about the direction of the colony. I'd like to attend, sir. Good, he said, writing an address on a small card. 22 cut hours, come alone, no uniform. That evening, Diane met briefly with Admiral Carter before heading to the meeting. We'll have a team nearby, he assured her, but they won't be close enough to help immediately if something goes wrong. Understand the risk, sir. These people are dangerous, Miller. They're not just prejudiced. They're actively working to undermine the colony's security. Diane checked her concealed recording device. I'll be careful, sir. The meeting location was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone between districts. As Diane approached, she noticed security measures, lookouts, signal jammers, and armed guards trying to blend in with the shadows. Captain Doyle met her at the entrance. Glad you came, Miller. Time to see what we're really fighting for. Inside, about 30 people had gathered. Diane recognized several security officers, but also saw civilian officials, military personnel, and business leaders, people with power and influence. A woman stepped onto a small platform. Diane recognized her as Counselor Helen Ward, head of the colony's security committee. Friends, Ward began. The time for waiting is over. Our sources in the Southern District confirm that the EDF Special Operations Command is investigating us. We must accelerate our timeline. Diane listened with growing horror as the plan unfolded. It wasn't just discrimination or separatism, it was a full coup attempt. They planned to use the stolen security algorithms to take control of the colony's defense systems, then declare independence from Earth authority. And they would start by eliminating their biggest threat, Admiral Jonathan Carter. Diane kept her face calm as panic surged through her body. The room around her was filled with conspirators planning to overthrow the colonial government and kill Admiral Carter. She had to get this information to the team, but Counselor Ward was still speaking. Our inside source confirms that Admiral Carter will be inspecting the main defense grid tomorrow at 0900 hours, Ward explained. That's when we'll strike. The access codes we've acquired will let us override the security systems. Captain Doyle stepped forward. Once we control the defense grid, we control the colony. Any resistance will be met with force. Ward nodded. The Southern District will be secured first. We have a list of community leaders to be detained immediately. Diane thought of Alan Brown and the other innocent people on Doyle's troublemaker list. These weren't separatists, they were planned scapegoats. What about Officer Miller here? Someone asked. She had that run-in with Carter, can we trust her? All eyes turned to Diane. She felt sweat on her back but kept her expression neutral. Miller's one of us, Doyle assured the group. She's been enforcing our special protocols in the Southern District for years. The words hit Diane like a physical blow. She had been a tool in their plan all along. That's right, she forced herself to say. I've seen firsthand what the Southern District is capable of. It's time for action. The group seemed satisfied with her response, and the meeting continued. They discussed guard rotations, weapons caches, and communication protocols. Diane memorized every detail, knowing her recording device might be detected by their jammers. As the meeting ended, people broke into smaller groups. Diane tried to slip away, but Doyle caught her arm. Not so fast, Miller. There's someone who wants to meet you. He led her to a small office at the back of the warehouse where a tall man in a military uniform waited. Diane recognized the insignia of Earth Defense Force Intelligence. Commander Lewis, Doyle said. This is Officer Miller, the one I mentioned. The commander looked at Diane with cold eyes. Captain Doyle speaks highly of you, Officer Miller. Says you understand what's at stake. Yes, sir, she replied, trying to sound confident. Good. Because we need your help with a specific task tomorrow. You'll be part of Admiral Carter's security. Detail. Diane felt ice in her veins. Sir? We need someone close to him when the systems fail, Lewis explained. Someone to ensure he doesn't escape in the confusion. They wanted her to kill Admiral Carter, the man who had given her a second chance despite her prejudice against him. I understand, sir, she said, keeping her voice steady. I won't let you. Down. Doyle smiled proudly. I knew you had it in you, Miller. As they left the warehouse, Doyle walked Diane to her transport. Get some rest. Tomorrow will change everything. Yes, sir, she replied. It certainly will. The moment she was alone, Diane activated her emergency beacon. Within minutes, a nondescript vehicle pulled alongside her, and she slipped inside. Admiral Carter and the team were waiting. They're planning a coup, she said without preamble. Tomorrow morning, 0900 hours during your inspection of the defense grid. They have access codes. Carter's expression was grim. How many? At least 30 at the meeting, but they spoke of more. Military, security, even civilian officials. She swallowed hard. They want me to be on your security detail tomorrow, to make sure you don't survive. Officer Johnson put a hand on Diane's shoulder. You did well. We need to move now, Officer Petrov urged. Arrest them all before they can act. Admiral Carter shook his head. If we move too soon, we might miss some of them. And they mentioned an inside source, someone close to me. We need to identify everyone involved. So what's the plan? Officer Hayes asked. We let them think their plan is working, Carter replied. But we'll be ready. Through the night, they prepared their counter-operation. The real defense grid would be isolated from the network. A fake one would be put online, appearing to respond to the conspirators' access codes. Meanwhile, loyal forces would be positioned throughout the colony, ready to move on Carter's signal. Officer Miller, Carter said as dawn approached, you have the most dangerous role. You'll have to maintain your cover until the last possible moment. Diane nodded, fear and determination mingling inside her. I understand, sir. Why are you doing this? Officer Rodriguez asked her. You could have walked away, let this happen. Diane thought about it. Because I was wrong. About the Southern District, about people like Admiral Carter, about what it means to protect our colony. She looked around, at the team. I want to be better than what Captain Doyle made me. At 0830 hours, Diane reported for duty on Admiral Carter's security detail. Captain Doyle met her at the security headquarters. Everything ready? He asked quietly. She nodded. Yes, sir. Good. When the systems go down, there will be confusion. That's your window. I won't miss it, sir, she promised. The security team assembled, and Admiral Carter arrived. His eyes met Diane's briefly, showing no sign of recognition beyond normal professional respect. Let's proceed with the inspection, he announced. They entered the Defense Grid Control Center, a massive room filled with monitoring stations and holographic displays. Commander Lewis was there, along with Counselor Ward and several other conspirators Diane recognized from the meeting. Admiral Carter, Ward greeted him with a false smile. Thank you for conducting this inspection personally. Security is my primary concern, Counselor, Carter replied. As they moved through the control center, Diane noticed subtle signals passing between the conspirators. Her hand moved closer to her weapon, ready to protect Admiral Carter when they made their move. At precisely 0900 hours, Commander Lewis checked his watch and nodded to Ward. She pressed something on her datapad. The lights flickered. Alarms began to sound. The massive displays showing the colony's defense shield flickered and went dark. We're under attack, someone shouted. Stay calm, Admiral Carter ordered. Emergency protocols. Now, Commander Lewis shouted. Several officers drew their weapons, pointing them at Carter and the loyal security personnel. Captain Doyle stepped forward, a triumphant smile on his face. Admiral Carter, you are relieved of command, he announced. The Earth Defense Force no longer represents the interests of this colony. Carter's expression remained calm. Is that so, Captain? The defense grid is under our control, Ward declared. The Southern District is already being secured. Surrender now and no one needs to die. All eyes turned to Diane as she raised her weapon. The moment of truth had arrived. Officer Miller, Doyle said expectantly. Do your duty. Diane looked at Admiral Carter, then back at Doyle. In that moment, she saw clearly the difference between these two men. One had judged her by her worst actions and still offered her a chance to be better. The other had nurtured her prejudice to use her. As a weapon, she made her choice. Diane turned her weapon toward Captain Doyle. I am doing my duty, she said firmly. Captain Frank Doyle, Commander Lewis, Counselor Ward, you are all under arrest for conspiracy against the Earth Defense Force and attempted coup. Confusion spread across Doyle's face, quickly replaced by anger. Miller, what are you doing? The right thing, she replied. For once, Commander Lewis lunged for his weapon, but Admiral Carter was faster. I wouldn't, he warned, his own weapon now drawn. The defense grid is not under your control. It never was. On cue, the lights returned to normal. The alarm stopped. The large displays reactivated, showing the colony's defense systems fully operational. What's happening? Ward demanded. The access codes were changed days ago, Carter explained. You've been accessing a shadow system, a decoy. The doors burst open as officers Rodriguez, Lee, Johnson, Petrov, and Hayes entered with a security team. The loyal officers quickly moved to secure the conspirators. Doyle glared at Diane with pure hatred. You betrayed us, betrayed your own kind. My kind? Diane shook her head. My kind is anyone who believes in protecting all people equally, not just the ones who look like me or live in the right district. As the conspirators were being restrained, Admiral Carter received an urgent message. His expression darkened. We have a problem, he announced. Some of their forces didn't wait for the signal. There's an attack underway in the Southern District. Diane felt cold dread. The community leaders on Doyle's list. Exactly, Carter confirmed. They're rounding them up now. We need to stop them, Diane insisted. Admiral Carter nodded. Officer Miller, you know the district best. Take a team and secure the area. I'll coordinate from here once these conspirators are contained. Minutes later, Diane was in a transport heading toward the Southern District with Officers Hayes, Petrov, and a squad of loyal security personnel. From the sky, they could see smoke rising from several locations. They're creating chaos to cover their operation, Officer Hayes observed. Classic insurgent tactic. Diane checked the locations on the map. The cafe, Alan Brown's place. That's one of their targets. We start there. As they approached, they saw armed security officers forcing people into transports. The cafe's windows were broken and several patrons lay injured on the ground. This is Officer Diane Miller, she announced over the loudspeaker. Stand down immediately. Your leaders have been arrested. This operation is unauthorized. The rogue officers looked up in confusion. One of them, Officer Webb, shouted back, "We have orders from Captain Doyle. These people are separatist sympathizers. Captain Doyle has been arrested for treason," Diane replied. "These people are innocent civilians. Stand down now or face charges." Some officers lowered their weapons, looking uncertain. Others held firm. Officer Webb raised his weapon toward Diane's transport. "Land now," Officer Petrov advised. "We need to resolve this on the ground." Diane nodded, and their transport descended to a clear area nearby. As they disembarked, Diane kept her hands visible. "Webb," she called out, approaching slowly. "I know what Doyle told you. He told me the same things for years, about the Southern District, about the people who live here. They're a threat to colony security," Webb insisted, but his voice wavered. "No," Diane replied. "They're just people, trying to live their lives just like us. Doyle and his conspirators used our prejudice to build an army for their coup." She took another step forward. "Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let them use you." Webb hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. Other officers followed his lead. "What now?" he asked. "We protect these people," Diane said firmly. "All of them. That's our real job." Over the next few hours, Diane and her team worked to secure the Southern District. They provided medical aid to the injured, ensured that wrongfully detained residents were released, and began repairing the damage caused by the failed coup. Alan Brown approached Diane as she helped clear broken glass from his cafe. "Never thought I'd see the day," he remarked. "Officer Miller defending the Southern District." "Neither did I," she admitted. "But people can change, if they want to, badly enough." By evening, Admiral Carter arrived to assess the situation. The coup had been completely suppressed. All the conspirators were in custody, and the colony was returning to normal. "Good work, Officer Miller," he said, surveying the district. "You've helped prevent a disaster." "There's still so much to fix," she replied, looking around at the damaged buildings and the wary faces of the residents. "Yes," Carter agreed, "but now we know what needs fixing." 3 months later, Diane stood in the newly renovated community center in the Southern District. The physical scars of the failed coup had healed, but the social wounds would take longer. That's why she was here today. Admiral Carter approached the podium to address the gathered residents and security personnel. "Today marks an important new beginning for our colony," he announced. "The creation of the Community Safety Council, where residents and security officers will work together as equals." He gestured to Diane. "And I'm pleased to introduce the head of our new community-based security initiative, Officer Diane Miller." Diane stepped forward, feeling the weight of many eyes upon her. Some faces showed trust, others skepticism. She had earned both. "Thank you, Admiral," she began. 6 months ago, I stood in a courtroom and saw only what I expected to see. A troublemaker from the Southern District. I was wrong, and that mistake almost cost us everything." She looked out at the diverse faces before her. "Security isn't about controlling people, it's about protecting them, all of them, and we can't do that job properly without understanding the communities we serve." Alan Brown was in the audience, nodding slowly. Beside him sat other community leaders who had been on Doyle's target list. They had agreed to give this new initiative A chance. I know I have to earn your trust, Diane continued. Many of you have good reasons to doubt me, but I promise you this. From now on, the Earth Defense Force will protect every person in this colony equally. No exceptions. After the ceremony, Admiral Carter found Diane looking out a window at the bustling district street. Having second thoughts? He asked. No, sir, she replied. Just thinking about how far we still have to go. Progress takes time, he reminded her. Changing minds is harder than changing policies. Diane nodded. I know that better than most, sir. You've come a long way, Officer Miller. Thank you for giving me the chance, sir. Admiral Carter smiled. We all deserve a second chance. Even a racist cop who once arrested an admiral. Diane laughed despite herself. I'll never live that down, will I? Probably not, he admitted. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Sometimes we need to remember where we started to appreciate how far we've come. As the sun set over the colony, Diane watched people from all districts mingling in the streets below. The divisions weren't gone, but the first steps toward healing had begun. And she was proud to be part of that change. She had discovered an important truth in that courtroom months ago. A person's true identity isn't about their rank or title or where they live. It's about the choices they make and the values they defend. Today, she had chosen well.